Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Nerdcast. You know, I was actually thinking, maybe I should start over again. I was thinking maybe I need more of like a broadcast radio kind of introduction here. Ladies and gentlemen of America, good evening. Like, ladies and gentlemen of America, like, who am I, fucking... Am I Paul Harvey? Oh, that's a reference none of you will get. Paul Harvey. I'm really showing all of the age and wisdom that comes from these grays, huh? Hello, my fellow Americans, this is Paul Harvey. Stand by for news!
Hello, Americans, this is Paul Harvey. Stand by for news.
No one's gonna get that on this fucking platform, dude. Let me see. I don't know, man. I'll have to come up with something better. All I can say is welcome back to the Nerdcast. Coming to you live from an undisclosed location in the center of Austin, Texas. I am your host, Devin, broadcasting on a Friday night, a somewhat warm. It's warmer than usual in this room. This room sucks, and it is brutal, man. It's hot. It's hot as hell. Like, it's about 9 o'clock at night, 9:30, and it's still hot. It's hot in Texas at 9:30 at night. Right now, it's really kind of sweltering in here, and it doesn't help that, you know, I'm kind of working out some reconfigurations with my lighting situation. So I've got two lights in here now instead of just the one. And the second light I'm using puts out a lot of heat, so the ceiling fan alone probably isn't gonna do very well for me. But like I said, just kind of giving you a little insight as to what I'm gonna be up to for the next couple days, maybe next couple weeks actually, into reconfiguring the layout here. I want to get more use out of this space than what I'm currently doing. Plus, I want to have all of my cool shit on display a little better than it is right now. Like, I started that process with this shelf, but then I realized that I didn't really like the configuration that I was initially going for, so I'm bringing in a ringer. I'm bringing somebody in to actually help me get this shit to look good. I kind of like the lighting situation I have right now. You can kind of see behind me little tints of blues bleeding into like oranges and stuff. Like, that's cool. I like that. I want more of that. I need a better camera too, but that's a completely different story. But the other browser window I have open, currently sitting in my cart on my checkout screen, I have... Alright, so before COVID, I made it a plan to build my own PC. I wanted to use it to do video editing, so I had an actually beefy kind of system that would help me kick out renders at a pretty quick clip, but I also wanted to double it as a gaming machine as well. So I started down that process. I have a processor, motherboard, power supply, and a really nice case for it. But I was always kind of holding off on like the big ticket items, the graphics card, the RAM, and all that sort of stuff. And then COVID hit. And once COVID hit, I put all of that shit on the back burner. Didn't really necessarily know how long COVID would last, honestly. Just making sure that there was a little bit more stability in our environment, in our climate, in our economy before I started dropping fat stacks on a PC. Especially the case in late June when the company I was working for went out of business. I found myself in the unemployment line, so to speak. Definitely put buying computer components on the back burner then. I'm ready to get back and like finish buying the components I need, but I'm kicking myself for waiting because all of this shit is just so expensive right now. I'm sitting here looking at my checkout cart for all the remaining things that I need to finish this out. I mean, honestly, for what I have in my cart right now, I could probably just buy a PC. Maybe I should just look into doing that. I could just buy a ready-built PC and just resell the shit that I have here for the amount of money I'm spending. Like, the whole reason I started off on this track of building a PC is because I wanted to actually build a PC. And honestly, I just wanted it to be a cheaper process. I wanted to be able to just buy the components independently and put it together myself and save some money. But that's out the window now. Like, that, the likelihood of that lifestyle is gone for me. the saving money, building my own PC thing, like, literally for what I have in my cart right now, I could probably buy a decent PC, maybe. I don't know. That, you see, I should check on that. Plus, I'm also just kind of like using a really shitty old Mac to do a lot of this stuff, and I think a lot of issues that I'm having as far as when I'm running multiple programs on the same device that I'm streaming this from comes from just having the resources of this damn thing being pushed to the limit. So I definitely would be better served to have this machine finished and built out to the specs that I want it to. specs that I want to be built out to. But yeah, that sticker shock has just got me stun locked, so I don't know. Back when I was initially mulling around whether or not I wanted to build my PC, I remember I was at a bar here downtown. I was just sitting at the bar, drinking, by myself like I usually do. As I'm sitting there, there was this girl that came and sat next to me. I wasn't paying any attention to her, as is my way. Usually when I go to a bar or something, I go there to pretend to socialize, when I'm stuck in the house for so long. I just want to go out and act like I'm being social with people, but really I'm just reading comic books on my phone and shit. And that's what I was doing here. But I could tell from my periphery that she wanted me to flirt with her. I could tell she was giving off that kind of energy. I'm not anti-barroom flirtation, but if it happens, it's gotta be something a little bit more natural than someone that's walking up to me and being like, "Hey there, sailor." I don't know, what? How fucking old am I? How old am I that I'm talking about fucking Paul Harvey? My impersonation of women flirting is, "Hey there, sailor." What the fuck, man? Where did I come from? This is how old am I? Jesus, I am such a fucking boomer, man. So, I'm not really super receptive to that immediately, and I wasn't at that time. I just kind of was ignoring her and whatnot. But at some point, I don't know how, we eventually start talking. She wanted to buy me a shot, and I'm never going to say no to that no matter who you are. I think I let her, and then I found out it was her birthday, and I was like, fuck, now I'm an asshole. So then I got her a drink. We started chatting, and then, she told me that at the time she Twitch streamed. She did a lot of Twitch streaming, and she did a lot of gaming, and I was like, oh, cool, At that time, I wasn't interested in Twitch streaming. I was interested in building a computer so I could do video editing and whatnot, and play some games. She was talking me into playing games on it, building a gaming rig. And she said that she built her gaming rig. And I was asking her questions about what's her setup look like and all that sort of stuff. And she, we got into a conversation where it felt less just two people at a bar just hornily flirting with each other, and it was more like, oh, cool, yeah, you like to do a Twitch stream and blah, 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 what kind of games, blah, I'm playing Witcher, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. And, it was cool to get to know her and all that, and we exchanged numbers and whatnot, and we talked a bit after that. She wanted to come over and help me actually put my machine together. And then, of course, COVID hit, and I put all that on pause and whatnot. Turned out that, and I found this out a few months ago, that I don't know how it happened, but she passed away. She passed away at some point during the COVID year. I don't know if it was because of COVID or not, but when I was starting to think about, oh man, I need to finish building my computer, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot all about her, and I went, looked her up and sent her a message, or was going to send her a message, and saw all of this all these really sad posts from her friends and shit about, I miss you and you were taken too soon and all that sort of stuff. And when I looked into it and realized that she had passed away, it sucks. I mean, I wasn't super close with her or anything, but it's always a weird feeling when someone that and have interacted with and got along with and all that sort of stuff, even if you weren't super close. It's always a thing when they're no longer around. Just an extra person that you're not going to be able to get to know better. You're not going to be able to make memories with and have fun with and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's another thing that whenever I look at this pile of computer components over in the corner of my room gathering dust, it just makes me think of man, it's a sad memory. I said it was sad. I gave you that warning up front. She was really cool. I wish that we could have hung out a little bit more. So, who knows? Maybe I won't buy a ready-built machine. Maybe I'll finish putting this one together in her honor. I feel like that's the move here now, but like I said, that sticker shock. I went back to my cart and I'm looking at it and I'm like, let me see if Newegg, let me see how much they have. It sucks right now. Everyone, you see, if you pay attention to politics, then you'll see that right-wingers are bitching about the Biden inflation and whatnot and all that shit. Just disregard the kind of spin that they're trying to put on it. They're assholes, and we all know this. But the inflation shit's real. It's not a Biden-specific thing. Like, it happened as a function of largely the pandemic, and also as a function of the monetary policy that we had to pass in order to keep people whole during the pandemic, or keep people as whole as possible during the pandemic. Like, those two things contributed to inflation. I talked about this a little bit whenever we were watching the Hassan Minhaj video about the years I spent in the game industry where I was struggling to survive, making menial wages and whatnot. Poverty is traumatic. Never forget that. Like, living an extended period of time, paycheck to paycheck, just barely getting by, wears on you, and it can affect you in a lot of different negative ways, mentally and emotionally. But when I finally did find a way to claw out of that and started making, quote unquote real money, aka getting paid what my labor is worth, I finally felt this sense of relief, like, oh man, this is what the economy is supposed to be like. Like, I work for a set amount of time, that's not like 60, 70 hours a week or whatever, like you get in Game Crunch, and I get paid enough money to where I can just afford things. Like, I thought about, oh man, I want a PS4, and then I just bought it. Like, I never had current gen systems when I worked in the game industry, because that was an expensive money drop, and I wasn't gonna, so I was always a generation behind when I worked in the game industry. But like, once I got out of the game industry, it was like, I want a PlayStation 4. I bought a PlayStation 4. And then whenever $60, $70 games dropped, like, I used to always bemoan a $60 or $70 game, and I still do, but I could buy it. And now, after all of this inflation, super heightened increase in prices of everything, not just electronics and computer components, but like gas and food and shit, the hiked up prices on all of that just makes me feel like I'm right back to where I was working in the game industry. It's not quite that bad. It's not that stark. When I was looking at that sticker price in my Amazon cart, I thought to myself, maybe I should just buy a PlayStation 5 or something. I know they're hard to get, but maybe I should just, try my luck and look at it. And I was like, I wonder how much those are going for. And I Googled that, and Jesus, man, they weren't that much cheaper than these PCs. Like, some of those PS5s, like at Walmart, they were selling them for $1,500. I was like, God damn, this is ridiculous. Like, when I wanted a PlayStation 4, I just bought it, and I can't do that with a PlayStation 5, not just because of the scarcity, but even if it's available, dropping that much money? Like, why? Why would anyone ever do that? This shit is $4,000, $4,179. Oh, let's sort by price, lowest lowest to highest. Let's see what I'm getting at down here. Oh my god, wait, are you kidding me? The cheapest computer ready to buy gaming desktop for this type of processor, which is the kind of processor that I have sitting in that box over there for my PC, $1,939. And this is with dramatically less RAM than what I've got in my Amazon cart. Like, this is only 16 gigs. I've got like 64 gigs sitting in my cart. Yeah, this is gonna require me sleeping on this purchase here, so I'm gonna leave it at that. God damn, computer shit's so fucking expensive right now. Kicking myself for not getting all that shit back when I could have and when I should have. There's a couple of news items actually that I was super interested in before we get into Dragon Force. Skyblivion, the Skyrim mod aiming to make Oblivion, the Oblivion Bethesda couldn't in 2006. Well, maybe love is a bit of a strong word. I really liked Skyrim. I liked it a lot. I sunk a lot of hours into it, which is the opposite of what I could say for Oblivion. I just couldn't get into Oblivion for whatever weird reason.
What a fool I was to leave my wife alone. The goblins must have been watching me, as they knew right when to strike. I could hear Kayleen's screams from far away.
Oblivion is a mod that's very easy to explain. It's aiming to bring the entirety of the Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion into the engine used by the Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim. But the reality isn't that the team of volunteers making it simply wants to upscale the 2006 game we already know. They want to make the dream version of the game that Bethesda's developers had in the backs of their heads when they came up with Oblivion. We are definitely taking some creative freedom here and there. Project lead K Rebel. Okay, I gotta remember these guys were just net boys. Project leader K Rebel tells me over email, if we didn't, you might as well replay the original Oblivion. Rest assured, though, that we are approaching this as fans of Oblivion and the Elder Scrolls game. They haven't announced a new Elder Scrolls game, have they? Like, Oblivion came out, when did they say it came out? 2006? Anyways, let's watch this Golden Sun video, and then I'll jump into
Flash inside. We talk a lot about video games on this channel, from the biggest hits to the games that end up on everybody's do not playlist. And I get to use this little rumor as an opportunity to make an entire video to talk about one of my absolute favorite franchises of all time. So let's explain why Golden Sun is on the tips of tongues of nearly dozens of gamers worldwide right now.
This dude is way
Recently,
too
there was
excited.
a rumor of a new Mario sports game coming soon. Like, really soon. The rumor came from the user Zippo on Risa Era, who has a history of things like Smash leaks, in a big thread with users sharing thoughts and information about the Big N. Zippo's post claimed that, quote, there's a new Mario sports game coming from Camelot in the first half of 2021. Wasn't told what sport it was, but golf is a safe assumption. Which, yeah, cool, great, neat. I like Mario golf games. They're fun. Toadstool Tour was a personal favorite. But the big eye-widening moment for everyone, or me, was the follow-up from Zippo. Quote, sorry GS fans, the sun will rise again. Eventually. That's the money right there. Now, is this rumor believable? Maybe. But
That's not
honestly,
even a rumor.
who cares? That one little line is more than enough fuel that I need to get started talking about Golden Sun again.
That's not even
So
a-
let's start with the
wait,
history
what?
of that Camelot place
What?
that Zippo mentioned.
Hold on a
Camelot
second.
also, quote, sorry GS fans, the sun
What it was, but golf is a safe assumption. Sorry, Golden Sun fans.
again. Eventually. That's
it's
the money
pretty clear
right
he just
there.
wanted an
Now,
excuse to
is
talk
this
about
rumor
Golden Sun.
believable? Maybe. But honestly, who cares? That one little line is more than enough fuel that I need to get started talking about Golden Sun again. So let's start with the history of that Camelot place that Zippo mentioned. Camelot, also known as Camelot Software Planning, has been in the game development business for a very long time and helped create some amazing titles in their tenure. Their longest running series is the Shining series, which is still being released today, though not being developed by Camelot themselves anymore.
But I'll suck now.
Camelot created the series with Shining in the Darkness and kept it
Awesome
going
game.
until 1997's Shining Force 3, ending their development with the series holding 10 games under their belt. The Shining games are amazing, by the way, and gave Sega a unique RPG series to combat Nintendo's hold on the Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest series back in the Genesis and SNES era. They also did a little title called Beyond the Beyond, which was a more traditional style RPG for the newly released PlayStation console back in 1995. It also started a trend of using an active playing system to keep players engaged in the usual slow-paced RPG battles. You'd see this active playing system be adapted to almost every popular RPG from then on, including Super Mario RPG, Final Fantasy VIII, Costume Quest. You get the point. These games all have you pressing buttons in time with your attacks and defends to do more or take less damage, something Beyond the Beyond popularized. That's great and all, but how did Camelot, who arguably seems to be favoring Sega and PlayStation platforms at this point, end up developing an IP for Nintendo? Glad you asked. It all started with a series you're probably familiar with, Everybody's Golf, known in the States as Hot Shots Golf. Hot Shots Golf was such a huge success, it kind of put Camelot on the map for quirky sports games. And this caught Nintendo's attention, which also means that the original Hot Shots Golf was the only game in the series that was made by Camelot. And so in 1998, after the release of Shining Force 3, and due to some struggles in dealing with Sega, Camelot signed on as an exclusive second-party developer for Nintendo. 1999's Mario Golf for the N64 and Game Boy Color were the first games released under this partnership. Mario Tennis quickly followed in 2000, again hitting the N64 and Game Boy Color. So go ahead and thank Camelot for the creation of Waluigi. You kinda owe them for that one. While Mario Tennis and Mario Golf
I
for the
didn't know that.
N64 were very much quirky sports titles with a Mario
Waluigi.
Game Boy Color versions were drastically different and had you playing as an original character, leveling up, traversing around, and interacting with characters in the aims of being the best at insert sport here. This is where a lot of Camelot's classic RPG developing charm was funneled into, but they weren't satisfied. With their old IP, the Shining series, now being handled by Grasshopper Manufacture, who would later go on to create the No More Heroes franchise, Camelot, on the other hand, was busy creating a whole new RPG franchise for Nintendo, Golden Sun. Inspired by their work with Beyond the Beyond and Shining Force 3, Camelot jumped into creating this new IP for the Nintendo 64. Of course, the Nintendo 64 was on its way out by the time they got around to developing it, so they quickly shifted it to the Game Boy Advance instead. This was one of the main reasons why Golden Sun took about 18 months to complete. That and the fact that Golden Sun and its sequel, The Lost Age, were actually developed as one title and then later split into two. The reason for that split was hardware limitation, not development problems. The Game Boy Advance carts couldn't handle the massive size of Golden Sun and The Lost Age, so that's why the split happened. The shift to making a GBA game actually solidified the success Golden Sun got, as it was released right around the time the new handheld launched and was one of the first RPGs on the platform, as well as one of the first new IPs released. One of the other ones, by the way, was the release of the Wars
Advance
series
Wars
game,
was
Advance
awesome.
Wars, outside of Japan for the very first
I
time.
love that game.
Now that we've finally gotten to the part of the story
I
where
need to play
Golden Sun
Advance
is
Wars.
released and exists, what the heck is Golden Sun exactly?
Alright, we don't need to know any more about that. I just wanted to know what he was going to say about its history and the rumor there. The rumor was very light. I wouldn't call it a rumor at all. It was really just kind of like wishful thinking. That dude, just the cheer and joy in his voice alone was going to give me a fucking diabetes. Oh, somebody just got wiped here. I think that must have been agony and pain. How's my noise gate doing? Hopefully it's not killing my... You see, this is why I need somebody monitoring how it comes in on the other side. I also need a mic. I have a lavalier mic. I just need to figure out how to interface it properly and put that shit right next to my mouth. Just clip that lav mic right on my lip so that I can do all the kind of moving around that I like to do and not have that affect my admittedly overly aggressive noise gate. I also need to reconfigure my noise gate so that it's not quite so aggressive. Like I have a tendency to kind of trail off, and I need to pause. Who knows what's going on in this game right now? I have a tendency to kind of trail off and like mumble, and you know, every now and then I'll just shut me off. Like I was saying, you couldn't hear anything I was saying just then because my noise gate shut me off because I get like mumbly and low, so I have to always stay loud and high and I have to speak quickly so that my noise gate doesn't fucking clap me. It's what it's doing is it's serving as a reminder of all of my bad speaking habits, and like if I'm gonna start doing this shit as some kind of a quasi-professional, amateur broadcaster, then I need to beat myself out of my bad habits, including mumbling off, trailing off on like some mumbly tangent while I sway all over the place, away from a stationary mic. Either learn to speak into the mic and stay that way, or get that lav mic and clip it right to my lip. I think I'm gonna try to go after Xanon. Yeah, I think I'm Gruder. He's like the one black guy in all of Legendra. Like, I've always found that funny. Like, I'm very glad that they put him in here. Like, an entire continent, fucking dudes. You've got 8 kingdoms and all sorts of free agent generals roaming around. And to my knowledge, out of all of those characters, Gruder here is the only black guy in all of Legendra. Look at him, he looks like he's the only black guy in all of Legendra too. He's like, these motherfuckers. These fucking motherfuckers. Look, he's gotta follow the orders of this dude. Fucking one of the whitest motherfuckers you can imagine, with a weird bulbous forehead and ram horns. I don't recall Xanon being particularly hard, to be perfectly honest with you. But I do remember him being a little bit of a pain in the ass. I can't remember why, though. We'll find out together. You and all the 0 people watching me right now. That's not usually the music that plays when you encounter Xanon. It's usually the more menacing music. I was looking forward to that. That's kind of a bummer. I am Xanon of Latonia. Remember that. Latonia? Where is that? It is only a minor fiefdom. At the present. Oh, Xanon being coy. But soon the entire world will know the name. It will be the kingdom that engulfed Izumo. Why are you at odds with Izumo? We did you no harm. Merely a convenience for me. You are simply in the way. Christy Love. I know that's a reference to something. Get Christy Love is an American crime drama TV series starring Teresa Graves as an undercover African-American female detective, which originally aired on ABC from January 22nd, 1974 to April 5th, 1975. The starring television role made Graves the second African-American female lead in U.S. network drama after Diana Carroll in Julia. The series is based on Dorothy Unak's crime thriller, The Ledger. So yeah, it was like, oh, it's the one black guy in the entire game, so obviously he's gonna make like a 70s fucking blaxploitation reference. What a fucking reference. Like, this game came out in 96, so even by 96 standards, this was a fucking dated reference. Fucking working designs, those assholes. Oh my god. Oh my god. Are you fucking kidding me? I don't want to click on that. I'm gonna click on it. I absolutely hate this. So, what I'm talking about here, for whatever stupid fucking reason, Force the Vote is trending on Twitter again. I shouldn't respond to shit on this. I shouldn't. This whole shit, oh my god, I can't believe. Fucking late yesterday, it was reported that breaking news, a millennial bought a house, and I guess the entirety of political Twitter, both leftist and right-wing psychos, all flip their collective shit over the concept of, somebody with money using that money to buy a house. And there's just been a shit ton of disingenuous arguments from the psycho left, from the Green Party dead-enders, and from lunatic right-wingers about, Hassan Piker, aka Hassanabi, on Twitch, aka Hassan the Hun on Twitter. Guess he bought a house. 2.7 million is what the number was. People are acting like he just dropped a sack of cash on like some banker's desk and was like, give me the house. According to his own explanation, he had to do the same thing most others do. You take out a loan and you pay that shit off. He bought it in the LA area, and I don't know if you know this, but housing in LA is pretty fucking expensive. So 2.7 million for the kind of house that he appears to have bought there is like the equivalent of me spending probably around $450,000 on a McMansion in Round Rock, Texas. It's maybe a soupçon north of average price, but it's not like fucking psycho lunatic. It's like the perfect storm of bullshit that all just kind of converged into a single focal point all at once. Here's the coalition of nonsense that all just happened to converge at the same point in time to cause this thing, Hassan buying a house, becoming something way overblown. And I'll get to the Jimmy Dore element of this later, which is also just completely asinine that that's become a part of this thing. You've got a number of people here who absorbed this news item in a variety of different ways. You've got a number of different people that they absorb this news in a number of different ways. So you have you have your Green Party dead-enders, your disingenuous leftists. There are those guys too, but you have these Green Party people. These are your psycho-anarchists who just don't believe in personal property at all, personal or private property at all, and the idea that someone of prominence on the left used money to buy a house in and of itself is defeatist to their cause. So you have those people that are lashing out about it. You have the disingenuous grifters who are using this as an opportunity to basically clout chase, right? And these people appeal to both the psycho-anarchist and they also appeal to far-right, lunatics. And these are your, for lack of a better descriptor, your Jimmy Dore types, or as I saw it, your Ryan Knight types. He, for whatever lunatic reason, he saw Hassan buying a house as an opportunity to attack AOC, which is the only thing that these people seem to be fucking interested in doing right now, is attacking AOC. Not for any, principled reason. It's just because, they're clout chasers, right? And they're trying to build a brand, and the best way to build a brand is to determine who the most popular figure amongst the types of people that they're trying to attack are, and they can't latch onto them, and that's a reason why Jimmy Dore has all these videos where he's just being pissed about people who don't show up on his show. He can't glom onto their popularity, so instead he's gonna attack them, and attack them in the most lunatic ways. It doesn't really necessarily matter how or why. You just have to do it. It's just the act of attacking that will draw that attention to you, oh, this person is supposed to be an ally and of some level of prominence, but they seem to have a real problem with AOC. And then they're pretending that, oh, it's for some principled reason, but it's not. They have their own project over there where they have their own little weird party. I believe that, America needs a third party or fourth party or fifth party, and we actually have a million third parties out there. Our electoral apparatus is supportive of none of them. It's a two-party apparatus, largely because of how, we run elections here and how our media portrays those elections here. It's not that it's impossible for a third party to win. It's just nightmarishly improbable. And I think that should change, absolutely. These people, and I have their app. I still have their little fucking People's Party app on my phone. I put it on my phone shortly after Bernie's campaign because they wanted to have their little digital convention, wanted to see what it was all about, and it was a waste of time. It was all nonsense, and it's still nonsense. And these people, they have no interest in anything other than clout chasing to build their rebranded Green Party dead-end nonsense. And that's all what they're interested. That's the only thing they're interested in this Hassan buying a house shit. So you can dismiss that bullshit too. But then you get into areas where, and I'm speaking maybe a little less politically, a little bit more philosophically and emotionally. There are a contingent of millennials and Gen Z types who feel, and I think I probably factor into this too. I'm a older millennial. They feel disconnected from the housing market. They feel like it's not within their reach to purchase a house. That aspect of the American dream has long since been dead for us. And I think that a lot of the kind of stories and a lot of the discourse that Hassan has had over the years on his Twitch stream and on other platforms around the topic made a lot of people who are in that struggle feel like, oh, okay, Hassan, he understands it. He's on our side. He gets it, and he's in it with us. He's in the muck with us. And at that period of time when Hassan was like, yeah, I'm not looking for a house anymore. I'm like, I just gave up on it. People, and I speaking as someone who also was looking for a house and who also gave up on the process because I realized that it's just not within my reach. For people who also feel that, when all of a sudden it comes out that, for lack of a better word, he sneakily buys a house. It's not like he was sneaking around like a bandit or anything. He just went and bought a house. It should be the most normal thing, most normal, innocuous thing in the world. But because, it had to leak, for security purposes, obviously he's a dude who, gets doxxed and has death threats and shit. So he has to sneak around on some of this stuff for safety purposes. But when that sort of thing leaks to people who are of that particular demographic, it kind of feels like, oh man, what the fuck? He was able to discern all the problems with our housing market. He was able to diagnose the problems and sympathize with the plight that we all have. But at the end of the day, he belongs to a class of people that can just brute force through that issue with money. And that's really all it is. Like, if you have money, you can brute force through most problems in America. And that's the long and short of it. I remember a long time ago, Justin and I were talking about, I think this was during the W years. We were talking about, I guess there was some healthcare debate that was going on. It must have, maybe it was early Obama. Maybe it was just when the Affordable Care Act discussions were happening. And we were talking about, like, Republicans just subscribe to what we call the Dick Cheney healthcare plan, which is or just be rich. Like, well, you should just be rich. Like, I don't understand. If you're rich, you don't have to worry about it. Like, your problems all seem to stem from not being rich. If you were just get rich, then you wouldn't have these problems anymore. That was the Dick Cheney healthcare plan, is to just get rich. And, that's ostensibly your problem solver for most problems in America. Whatever problem you have, just get rich. And it's no longer a problem for you. And for something as monumental and foundational in how Americans are taught to pursue the American dream and how to build wealth and how to build really an identity of sorts, like it all stems from home ownership and whatnot. And that road is walled off from you, and you're trying to figure out ways of, how can we reform this system? How can we do this? How can we do that? How can and it seems more and more impossible, especially as all these stories come out about, like, private equity firms and whatnot who are, buying up all these single family homes, and all of these articles we're starting to see coming out in, like, Bloomberg and shit, where it's basically telling people, hey, there's nothing wrong with being a renter. Actually, if you ask most kids, like, they want to be renters, they like renting, and hey, our renter's lifestyle is just the way that we're going to have to get used to it, and, like, all of those kinds of articles that are coming out that are, like, designed to demoralize and to get people used to the idea of never owning a home, never being able to purchase a home. It's not for you. Like, home purchasing, home buying is not for you peasants anymore. Like, it's only for a certain strata of people, right? And, like, if you work a 9 to 5 and you come home and you drink a beer and take a shower and all that sort of, like, colloquial blue collar bullshit, like, you don't own a home anymore. That's not for you. Homes aren't for you. Homes are for the better people, And when, the news broke that Hassan dropped $2.7 million on a house, I think to that demographic of people, it felt like a betrayal. It was like, oh man, like, he isn't in the struggle with us because he could use his money to brute force through these problems. Like, how dedicated to the problem could he possibly be if he could get around it, Like, it's kind of like, and that's how people view a lot of issues that other people go through. It's like, how committed can someone really be to the water crisis in Flint if you don't have a water crisis, if you're not, in Flint struggling with water yourself? Like, if you're drinking clean water down by, in the condos of Del Boca Vista or whatever, yeah, maybe you're disgruntled about the drinking water in Flint. Maybe you're agitated by it. But, how out of your way are you really going to go down there in Del Boca Vista drinking your nice purified water? How far out of your way are you going to go to make sure that people in Flint, Michigan can afford those same luxuries, Maybe you'll do some performative tweeting about it. Maybe you'll donate to some causes, and that's not bad. You can definitely do that. Like, you can definitely contribute monetarily in a way that can be beneficial to people, but your investment in that issue that doesn't quite affect you is different than what it would be if it did directly affect you. And I think that there is a feeling that if Hassan has the kind of money where he could brute force through these problems, then maybe there's a potential element that it isn't that much of an issue for him, the way that it is for, the people that are watching him. Out of all of, like, the weird reactions to this shit throughout the day, I understand that reaction a lot more than I understand, or maybe not, I understand all the reactions. The other ones were just shitty and stupid people being stupid people, but I guess I sympathize with that response more than any of the other ones. And I don't know Hassan, so I can't speak to him, from a personal level, but I'm not willing to believe that that speaks to his philosophy or his underpinning beliefs, his belief system, or anything like that about the kinds of things that he advocates for and fights for. I don't think it speaks to that quite that starkly. Like, I don't think it's like, oh, well, he has the money to bulldoze it, that he's just kind of bullshitting. That's why I think you see people that toss the grift word around. Obviously, he's grifting. Like, he can just buy his way out of things, but it's a very different thing. And this is where you get to like the Jimmy Dore element of it, because people, and I was one of these people, and I am one of these people, and I will continue to be one of these people that criticize Jimmy Dore over the house that he has. Jimmy Dore, like, comparatively speaking, like, you know, from what I can tell, Hassan has like a decent sized McMansion, basically the kind of house you would buy in a suburb that's built by like Syntex Homes or something. Only the people in Central Texas will understand what Syntex Homes is, but you get what I'm talking about if you understand it. It's not an exuberant mansion. It's not like the kind of shit that, you know, those kind of videos where he watches producer Michael, whatever that dude's name is, going to those exuberant mansions. I'm sure it's nothing like that, right? Whenever the criticism was going around about Jimmy Dore, it was about like this lavish mansion he has and all this sort of stuff, and it's like, okay, real estate in LA, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a big difference between like, and when you have these arguments and these discussions about socialism and private property versus public property, or private property versus personal property, and what does it mean to be a socialist as far as our relation with money is concerned, as far as our relationship to personal property is concerned, and all of that sort of stuff. Like, when you get down to like buying houses, like the ability to purchase a house, the ability to accrue the kind of money that you would need to purchase these kind of houses, like a house that's north of $1 million, basically, like, you do have to understand that there is validity in how that money is made. There is a difference between how Jimmy Dore got there and how Hassan got there. Now, if you want to say Hassan is a product of nepotism because, you know, he was given a platform on the Young Turks from his uncle, and he has since springboarded from that platform to, you know, create his own thing, okay, I'm not going to disagree with you on that. He definitely had an opportunity that was given to him by his uncle that maybe some other people wouldn't have had, sure. But, you know, he did still venture off from TYT. He left them. And for whatever audience that he brought with him, he built up his own following on Twitter over years. Like, he started Twitch streaming, like, 2018 or something? And throughout the course of those years, like, he just got good at it, you know? I watch his Twitch stream. He's extremely entertaining. He's an entertaining dude. He has a philosophical ethos that I think is born from his socialist ideology that allowed him to grow in that manner, speaking directly about how he enables random people to profit off of his product. Like, he'll put out like an 8-hour stream. Any random Yahoo can grab the video of that stream and edit it and cut it and put it up on their own channel. And like, there are several channels on YouTube that, you know, are just dedicated solely to, you know, putting up clips from Hassan's stream that day. And I remember when he was role-playing in Grand Theft Auto, there was, you know, channels that were dedicated to just cutting up whatever shit that his role-playing character was up to that day. It was entertaining, you know? And actually, like I said, I was vaguely familiar with Hassan in TYT, but I didn't really, you know, pay much attention to him or follow him or anything like that. But I was reintroduced to him through those YouTube clips, through some of those YouTube clips. And I was amused by him, entertained by him, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to watch this guy's stream, see what it's about. And I did. I started watching his stream. I became a regular viewer of his stream, and eventually I subbed to his stream. So it's because of you know, his ability to just let people do whatever they want with his content. Like, I became a subscriber to his because he's fucking entertaining. He's a hilarious dude. He's an informative dude. And that's great, you know, but that's really it for him. You know, he does his ad thing, which I guess he's contractually obligated to do as a Twitch partner or whatever he is there. Sure, whatever. But that's really all he does, right? He entertains people on Twitch for 8 hours a day. And then You know, he gets a shit ton of subs from it, and rightfully so. He's an entertaining guy. Now, what Jimmy Dore does, you know, Jimmy Dore talks about, like, fuck, he peddles conspiracy theories, like, you know, Seth Rich being killed by the DNC and, like, Hillary Clinton's Parkinson's and all this other stupid nonsense. He fucking goes on to Tucker Carlson's show and has zero challenges for him. Like, Tucker Carlson, the most prominent racist fascist in American media today, he goes onto his show and has not a single bit of opposition towards anything Tucker Carlson says. He's just buddy with the motherfucker. He talks about, like, fucking platforming Boogaloo Boys and working with Boogaloo Boys and all that sort of shit. And if you look at any of, like, the comments on that motherfucker's posts, his YouTube videos, it's like mostly right-wing psychopath. The dude, for all intents and purposes, is a fucking Newsmax guy. He's a Newsmax pundit posing as some weird, you know, neo-leftist or whatever it is he thinks he is. And, like, there is a big difference between doing that sort of shit and rambling about car pussy on Twitch for like 8 hours a day, or, you know, playing Grand Theft Auto, or, you know, watching videos about, you know, watching those Jubilee videos about, you know, two groups of people that talk about some kind of weird random subject matter, or, you know, getting your nails painted, or doing an IRL stream where you're almost getting stranded in a Tesla in Texas, like all that other sort of weird stuff. And yeah, he'll talk politics, but, like, he's not a debate lord, so it's not like he's clout chasing for debates and shit. He'll talk about debates that happen if there's something interesting to talk about, but, like, there's never anything he does that is actively destructive to the progressive movement, or actively or as an act of promotion of, like, right-wing nonsense. And Jimmy Dore is the opposite of that. Everything Jimmy Dore does is disempowering of the left movement and is very promotional of the right-wing movement. Add to the fact that, and so he gets, like, so that's what a lot of his money is. I call it political blood money. That's what built Jimmy Dore's house, is political blood money. Like, there is no universe that exists where you will be able to convince me that it's perfectly okay to, you know, go on Tucker Carlson's show and not challenge a single fucking psycho thing he says. To go on his show at all is already a dicey proposition. I'm not going to be one of those guys that's like, oh, you should never go on Tucker Carlson's show. No, the guy speaks to a massive audience, you know, and if ever there was a massive audience that needed to be spoken to by someone with some semblance of rationality, it's Tucker Carlson's audience. So I'm not anti, you know, go on Tucker Carlson's show. But if you do go on Tucker Carlson's show, you need to go with purpose. Like, if you watch that debate that Lauren and I watched about, it was Vosh and Charlie Kirk with, like, Tim Pool serving as a moderator. He didn't do a bad job as a moderator, I'll tell you that, which is shocking. But you watch that debate, you can understand that Voss showed up to that with a purpose. You know, there was a reason for his being there. And it was an interesting debate in the sense that it wasn't nearly as contentious as I thought it would be, and I thought that he accomplished his mission, right? Like, if the idea was to rationally expose your thoughts and your philosophy to an audience that might not be immediately receptive to it, but could be made to be receptive to it if you engaged with, quote-unquote, their champion in a manner that they thought was not only respectful, but insightful and thoughtful, then you might be able to succeed in pulling some people over. And in that regard, I think that he was successful in that. And I think that if you were going to be platformed on Tucker Carlson's show, it is imperative of you to go in with that as your goal. Like, those people that watch that show, that's ground zero for the worst elements of America's fascist far-right movement that is currently marching at, like, lightning clip towards, you know, a dominance, basically. Like, don't think for a second that January 6th was the end of it. It's not. It wasn't. You know, they're coming. They're learning lessons. They're figuring out, for whatever stupid fucking reason, three Democrats from Texas decided to come back into Texas and give Greg Abbott the quorum he needed to reconvene the Texas House and pass those voting laws. And the Democrats gave some shit reasons. They were like, well, we have to come back so we can battle COVID. And it's like, what the fuck are you gonna do to battle COVID here? Are you a nurse? Are you gonna fucking hole up in a hospital, fucking sticking catheters in people or whatever the fuck you do? Sticking catheters, sticking tubes, breathing tubes down people's throats? Is that what you're gonna do? No? Oh, well then anything else that you were gonna do short of actually physically working in a hospital, you could have done, in DC remotely. Like, the world just spent an entire year on lockdown. We all know about the value of remote work. We know what you can do on Zoom. You didn't have to go to Texas to fucking do some COVID work or whatever the fuck excuse you're using. They specifically went, just those three, to give Greg Abbott the quorum he needed to proceed. And that's unconscionable. Those Democrats need to be run out of town. Well, whatever the case may be, someone got in those three Democrats' ears. They got back to Texas. Abbott has his quorum, and we're about to see voting rights in Texas get completely manslaughtered, completely eviscerated. And the only hope that we had of stopping that are those voting rights bills that the Democrats in Congress are completely uninterested in passing for whatever reason. They don't want to get rid of the filibuster for it. And because of their steadfast devotion to that archaic, nightmarishly outdated, and racist rule, we're going to see a march towards fascism like you've never experienced before if all of these right-wing anti-voting bills all across the country, not just Texas, all across the country, all start getting passed. Like, if our hopes hinge on the Supreme Court, stepping in and doing the right thing, then we're fucked, because the Supreme Court already made their stance known years ago when Chief Justice John Roberts said, well, racism isn't a problem anymore. Well, we don't need the Voting Rights Act. Racism is not a problem. Let's just do away with that shit. So, like, the Supreme Court, they've already shown that they aren't going to be on the voters' side on this. So, knowing what we know of the radical right march towards crazy fascism that's happening, like, if you get an opportunity to go on Tucker Carlson's show and speak to, like, the beating heart of that movement, you owe it to every decent living human being in this country, subsequently on this planet, to do what you can to challenge it, to pull people out of that psycho movement, and to show people that there's a better way, there's another way, there's a better way, and that the way that they are following is nothing short of an abject threat to peace and stability in this country, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, I believe that it is that dire. And Jimmy Dore, that he lends so much of his personal credence to Tucker Carlson and Tucker Carlson's project and offers no challenge to it, makes all of his money and subsequently anything he spends his money on, including his lavish LA mansion, it's blood money. And it is unconscionable that he lives in anything close to luxury from it. So that's where I see the difference between, Hassan making money from Twitch streaming and he doesn't get money from Assad, from fucking Assad apologists, the way that Jimmy Dore was documented having done. There's just all this other weird shit about that fucking dude on top of his shitty opinions. So, no, Hassan and Jimmy Dore are total opposites on this thing. Like, you have one guy who exploits virtually nobody. Like, you can't say that there isn't. It's an exploitation that none of us can escape. There's so much of both monopolies and monopsonies that occur in our tech world, just in the structure of our existing capitalist market system, to where it's impossible for any of us to not exploit in some way, shape, or form somebody down a supply chain. We are all nightmare exploiters of someone's labor. And that's why it's important to support movements wherever they exist that threatens to challenge that. Like the Nabisco strikes. Support the Nabisco strikes. Don't cross those picket lines. Don't buy any of those Nabisco products. And whenever those strikes occur anywhere else, always support them. The Amazon unionization efforts, it sounds like it's back on in Bessemer, Alabama. I don't know if it's going to be back on anywhere else, but at least in Bessemer, Alabama, it's going to be back on. Support them with anything and everything you've got. You know, I talked about the efforts to unionize the game industry on the last stream, and I don't know what's happening with Game Workers Unite, but in discussing that, I did mention the Pixel Pushers Union 512, which is a game development studio in Austin that's a worker-owned co-op. And I think that every tech company, not just game company, but every tech company that can exist should that forms from here. I mean, it's difficult to do it retroactively. Like, it's very difficult for a company that already exists and is making money to decide to convert to a worker-owned co-op model. So I'm not gonna pretend like that's a fight that's winnable. The winnable fights are in the newly formed companies, the newly formed businesses. Like, if you just got laid off from a game company, or you just lost your job at like a web developer or whatever else, and you're kicking around the idea starting your own thing, like, oh, I'm going to start my own game studio, I'm going to start my own web development service or whatever, I strongly urge you to first and foremost look into worker-owned co-op and attempt to go down that route. You know, attempt to start making more and more of these companies from the onset worker-owned co-ops. In lieu of a strong unionization effort across the entirety of the game industry, which sounds, to me, it seems like it's a little dead in the water. I don't know what's going on with Game Workers Unite. Haven't heard hide or hair from for some time now. In lieu of that, like, the thing about the game industry is there's always a crazy high turnover. People are always getting laid off. People are always getting let go. Studios are shutting down. Like, there's always a lot of churn going on beneath, like, you know, the top 20 companies or so. And even with those top 20 companies, they're always letting people go, and they're always bringing new people on board. And from those companies being let go, there's always new companies starting up, right? Like the company I last worked at in the game studio, Armature, you know, those were started up by guys that used to work at like Retro Games in Austin. You know, those was like a second party developer of Nintendo, I believe. And there are also all sorts of companies that, you know, when I was talking about Emily Grace Buck, I believe, the woman that was highlighted in that Hassan Minaj piece, I believe she works at a place now called Wayward Games. I think that may also have been an offshoot. I could be wrong here, but that may also have been an offshoot from the people that were laid off from Telltale Games when Telltale shut down. Like, that shit is always happening. And we should, going forward, strongly urge all of these game developer studios, as they start to, you know, percolate new studios, as the churn occurs, and as these developers get together and start creating these new studios, we should urge them to create worker-owned co-ops, and because that's the only way I think we're going to get out of that situation. Generally, specifically speaking in the game industry, as far as unionization efforts there, but also just broadly speaking, across the board. And you know, it's kind of like a weird place to get to when I start off by talking about the latent exploitation that we all engage with down our supply chains, but you know, absent strong unionization efforts in those supply chains, and again, support the Nabisco's strike. Do not buy those Nabisco products, and support the Amazon unionization efforts in Bessemer, Alabama. Again, outside of broader unionization efforts across those industries and across those particular companies, like, we should definitely be seeding the birth of more worker-owned co-ops. I think that's the best way going forward to dramatically reduce our supply chain exploitation. So, you know, that's kind of where I land on that. It used to be that buying a house was like a celebrated thing. You'd close on a house and everyone would be happy for you, and you close on it, and it was that whole rigmarole, right? And I'm sure that he had that with his family and his closest friends, but to cap that off with like a day and a half of just this nonsensical outrage, like from psycho far left anarchists who don't believe in the concept of property at all on the left, to like clout chasing Green Party dead enders, to like people who genuinely are confused about why socialism isn't a personal vow of poverty and why, you know, it's okay for socialists to buy things, to just far right lunatics that are, you know, they love this shit. Like, every time you talk about socialism to any kind of person on the right, for the duration of the existence of the right in this country, their go-to has always been, like, it's that meme. You criticize society, yet you live in it. Curious. That's always been, like, their whole fucking thing. So, like, they get a huge kick out of, leftist buys expensive LA house, and B, leftists are angry at leftists for buying expensive LA house. This is their bread and butter, and you know what? Hey, for whatever it's worth to those guys, I hope they had their day's worth of entertainment out of it.